Greetings and welcome back to Kage Los Angeles. Another Labor Day weekend, another wave of violence in the usual hotspots. Now, you think after years of headlines, Chicago, Baltimore, Los Angeles leaders would finally admit what's happening. But instead, many Democrat officials, of course, it's always the Democrats, many Democrat officials still act as if crime is some sort of an illusion, as if their cities aren't plagued by shootings, by robberies, by homicides. Let me ask you this. If crime was so non-existent, then why did Los Angeles alone record over 320 homicides last year, more than double the number of just a decade ago? Why does Chicago average more than 20 shootings every single weekend? The truth is, chaos pays. Violence pays. And that's the ugly secret nobody in power wants to say out loud. And especially mainstream media, they certainly won't say it out loud. See, there's profit in keeping communities in constant disarray. A population that is scared, that's confused, that's traumatized is a population that cannot take control of their own minds, let alone their own life. And when people can't control their own lives, they end up dependent on, you got it, the government. Not as a partner, not as a servant, no, but as a parent. A government that plays daddy, a government that plays mommy. And isn't that exactly the kind of power these politicians want? Of course it is. Remember, fear is currency. Once again, fear is money. It's currency. And right now, corruption is the bank. So let's take Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson is getting hammered by citizens in city meetings, people literally shouting at him for him to focus on them, not illegal aliens. But what's his answer? His answer is to raise taxes on working class citizens so he can funnel more resources to migrants. Think about that. In a city already bleeding residents, already bleeding businesses, the mayor's priority is to tax his people to pay for more non-citizens. And the people of Chicago, they're rightfully furious. But Johnson doesn't care, because once again, chaos pays. Chaos pays. That is so important to remember. Now let's bring it home to California. Governor Gavin Newsom is playing a dirty game with wildfire victims right now. Entire neighborhoods are burned to the ground, families displaced, insurance battles unresolved. And what is Sacramento doing? Selling off scorched land for pennies with plans of so-called affordable housing projects that are already waiting in the wings that fast. Tell me this, how is it that within weeks of so-called accidental fires, development blueprints are already on the table? Does that look like a coincidence to you? To me, it looks more like coordination. And for the families who lost everything, they're left stranded. They're left unable to even begin rebuilding while the state cashes in on their tragedy. And then there are the stories that you barely hear, like Altadena. What happened to Altadena? We hear about the Palisades, but we don't hear about Altadena. Whole communities at risk of losing their homes. It was quietly swept aside while the cameras focused elsewhere. For this, there were no protests. For this, there were no headlines. Just silence. But silence, my friend, is a part of the plan, because when the people can't rebuild, when the land changes hands, and when fear replaces hope, power consolidates at the top. That is what this is really about. Corruption. Corruption that is so blatant, corruption that is so in your face, it almost feels impossible to process. But here we are. This is Kage Los Angeles. Let's get into it. So before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you find it informative and useful. Every click helps cut through the noise and bring the truth straight to you. First up, we've got to talk about Chicago. And honestly, it's the same story kind of that we're living here in Los Angeles or in California in general. Politicians, they're always lining their pockets while citizens beg for relief. Ordinary people stand up in meetings. They plead for help. They demand that their leaders put citizens first. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Put citizens first instead of illegal aliens. And of course, what happens? Politicians gaslight them. They go on TV, puff up their chests with fake strongman stances and act like no one is complaining. You know what? Let's call it like it is. Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker are evil. There's really no other way to frame it. Their policies are literally destroying the lives of American citizens while they pretend it's all about compassion for people who broke the law to be here. That is not compassion. That is corruption wrapped in virtue signaling. And here's the kicker. These same leaders refuse Trump's offer to send the National Guard in. They posture as if Illinois somehow does not need help, as if everything is fine. But who do you believe? Politicians in tailored suits or the people on the ground? The people on the ground flooding TikTok with videos begging and even praying for federal help. You know, the numbers don't lie. This Labor Day weekend in Chicago was a gun show. Just like clockwork, every year, every holiday, the bodies pile up and officials still try to downplay it. It wasn't that bad, of course. It's not so bad. Chicago recorded over 2,700 shootings in 2023 alone. Last year's homicide count topped 600 lives lost. More than some entire states. And on Labor Day weekend, in recent years, the city has averaged 40 to 60 people shot. This is families torn apart. This is children caught in the crossfire. This is neighborhoods living in constant fear. But what do you hear from Johnson? What do you hear from Pritzker? Crickets. Just polished lies on TV while their people bleed in the streets.
Chicago police confirming that 5 people were shot near 36th Street in Cottage Grove. Officers responded to the area around 1 o'clock last night, 1 o'clock this morning, I should say. Police say while they were on scene, officers heard gunshots and moved to the area of gunfire.
In Chicago, everybody got to get down. Everybody got to get down because they shoot. Everybody down. Look, these kids are running. They shooting. We can't have no fun in Chicago, man. No fun, man. This is terrible. I'd have throw a goddamn flag.
So, this Labor Day weekend in Chicago, 31 separate shootings, 7 people dead, 52 people shot, only 3 persons of interest arrested. And yet, officials keep on smiling on the camera, saying, we don't need your help. We don't need any help. Crime is down. Really? You tell me, does that sound like a city that doesn't need help? You know, it's not that they don't need help. It's that the politicians there want this to happen. Chaos is their paycheck. Violence is their business. It's literally their business model. The more broken the streets, the more leverage they hold over frightened citizens who end up depending on the government to fix what they never wanted fixed in the first place. Chaos does not punish politicians. It pays them. You must understand that. And here's what makes it even worse. Have you noticed that the violence never touches the neighborhoods of the politicians? You never hear about shootings on the block where TV pundits and millionaire anchors live. Why? Because their homes are locked down tighter than Fort Knox, guarded with private security details the average citizen, the average taxpayer, can never afford. Meanwhile, the ordinary citizen pays taxes for police protection they don't get. No one in their right mind wants to live under that deal, paying for safety while criminals own the streets. And when you bring up numbers like these, when Chicago residents shout from the rooftops about the blood in their neighborhoods, what do they get from their mayor? Gaslighting, empty words, excuses, and sometimes outright denial. Well, the people aren't buying it anymore, and you shouldn't either. Check out this next clip.
This president continues to go well beyond the bounds of the Constitution to the extent in which our democracy is in peril right now. I'm going to do everything in my power as the mayor of this city to protect Chicago.
You know, I always wonder who is paying Brandon Johnson, because you can see it in his eyes. That's not conviction. He's reading a script. He's saying what he's been told to say, doing what he's been told to do. And why? Because someone is obviously cutting a check or dangling a promise in front of him. I wonder who it is. Think about it. Citizens, the taxpayers, are literally standing up at meetings saying, we want this. We want Trump here. They're emphatic. They're clear. They're loud. And yet Johnson tells them, no, I'm not doing what you want. I do what I want. That is not a public servant. That is a public betrayer. Instead of protecting his people, he takes their money and hands it to non-citizens. He robs Peter to pay Paul, except Peter is a lifelong Chicago taxpayer, and Paul is someone who broke the law to be here. That's insane. And up to now, Democrats have gotten away with this sleight of hand. But here's the difference now. Donald Trump is shining a massive spotlight on this insanity. And believe me, they are terrified. They're frightened. They're scrambling to turn the public against him. But here's the irony. The more they attack Trump, the more people see the truth, and the more support Trump gains. Even some Democrats, probably the ones not riding the same money train as Brandon Johnson, are, well, I'd say they're breaking ranks. They're speaking out, calling out the chaos because they can't stomach what's happening to their cities anymore. And that should tell you something. When members of your own party start blowing the whistle, the facade is cracking. Check this out.
How many victims are we comfortable with? Because that's ultimately the subtext of what the mayor and the governor are saying, is that we are comfortable with the amount of victims we have right now. We don't need to improve on our numbers any further than.
Now, here's what's important. People don't want crime to be down. No, they want crime to be stopped. There's a difference. Listen, in neighborhoods where the politicians live, where the TV pundits live, there's hardly any crime at all. Nobody's clutching purses. Nobody's hiding watches. Nobody is afraid to walk at night. And yet, these elites, so-called elites, look into the cameras and tell regular citizens just deal with it. They act like they're a part of our communities when in reality they're living behind gates, guarded like royalty. President Trump has reached out to crime-ridden cities all across the country, including right here in Los Angeles. But what do the mayors and governors do? They play tough. They say, we don't need help. Why? Because the moment Trump steps in and proves that change can happen, it exposes them as frauds and shows the public that safety was always possible and that chaos was always their choice. And that terrifies them because if chaos ends, so does their money. All that money flowing into their pockets, gone. Now let's talk about Gavin Newsom. He's trying to save face right now because everyone knows he's eyeing a presidential run. And let's be honest, the idea is already a disaster. He is the worst governor in the nation right now and wants to graduate to being the most destructive president of all time. So what is he doing? Pretending to crack down on crime in Los Angeles and across California, putting on a show for the cameras. But here's the real deal. Under Newsom's watch, violent crime in California spiked 15% from 2019 to 2023. Homicides, robberies, burglaries, all climbed, while families across the state paid the price. And what did Newsom do? He denied it was happening, just like Chicago, just like everywhere else. Now in 2025, he's wasting even more taxpayer money on a publicity stunt, pretending to be tough on crime. It's not real reform. It's not even leadership. It's just another expensive show that, guess what? We, the taxpayer, are paying for.
Red states that you say are higher, and at the same time, we're here because you're surging law enforcement across the state. So do you believe that crime is a problem in California or not?
Well, sort of a curious question. I made the entire point that crime's an issue and we want to tackle it, and we continue to do more in that space. And we announced and highlighted some of the expansion. What is not contradictory, respectfully, is that we're doing it in partnership with our local communities. We did it in partnership with the Biden administration prior. We're not talking about the nationalization, the militarization of the Guard and militarizing United States cities. So quite the contrary.
You know, you can see it in his body language. Newsom's lies are finally catching up to him. Before, he could lie on camera, get off the air, walk away untouched. But now, people are starting to notice. And he knows it. Because if he slips up now, his presidential ambitions vanish. You know, truth be told, they should already be finished. The only reason he's still standing is because too many people aren't paying attention to politics. They swallow whatever he says. And of course, the mainstream media props him up like the golden boy because they're not watchdogs. They're lapdogs. Just another wing of the Democratic Party. But here's the thing. He knows the truth. And some of us, we know the truth. And we know that the truth is ugly. Crime has been and still is outrageous here in California. People are losing businesses. Families are grieving loved ones who have been blown away, beaten, stabbed. Homelessness is still out of control. Streets still littered with tents, with needles all over the ground. People walking around looking desperate. You name it, it's happening. And it's happening every single day. Yet Newsom just sits there with a smirk, pretending everything is just fine. And who do they trot out on TV? Not the mother who lost her son in a robbery, not the shop owner whose business was looted. No. They give the mic to people living in gated, manicured neighborhoods where nothing happens. People with millions of dollars in the bank pretending they're just like us. That's the illusion, and a lot of us swallow it. Newsom is the definition of a con man. Brandon Johnson? I would say he's not as slick, but you can see him trying to copy the playbook. You see, Newsom's been a con man his whole life. It comes natural. It's like breathing. That's the level of deception that we're dealing with here.
He has surprised all of us and done something intelligent. He has decided to send the state police, California State Police, into his major cities to help local cops fight crime and violence. Now, you don't have to be a senior at Caltech to know that that's in response to the Trump administration's threat to send in federal law enforcement officials. But look, I'll take it. If that's what it takes to get Governor Newsom to stop being a princess, I'll take that too.
Stop being a princess. Look, when someone really wants to succeed at something and they tried and tried and tried and failed, what do they do when qualified help shows up? They take it. They grab that lifeline. The only time a person turns down help after repeated failure is when the failure was planned all along. That's the scam. They never intended to fix the problem in the first place. They just wanted you to keep paying them while they pretend to try to. That's Gavin Newsom. That's Brandon Johnson. That's the political hustle. Failure for profit. And that brings us to the wildfires right here in Los Angeles, just 6, 7, 8 months ago. But if you watch the news, you think you think that happened like 6 or 7 years ago. Why? Because they don't want you talking about it. They don't want you remembering what was lost. While families are still grieving, still displaced, politicians have already moved on, scamming people out of their land, flipping tragedy into their opportunity. Here's what's really happening. That scorched land is already being lined up for sale. Some of it rumored to be going to foreign buyers like China. The rest branded as low-income housing. Sounds noble, right? But I think by now we all know the game. It'll eventually morph into high-price real estate once the tax breaks and incentives are secured. And who's in on it? Of course, Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, the whole crew. They're running full speed ahead with a plan that benefits them, not the victims. And people across Los Angeles are furious, rightfully so. To understand how wrong this is, let's kind of rewind. Let's go back to the beginning of this, the melee. President Trump held a press conference saying the very things Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass should have been saying. He spoke with urgency, with clarity, and with leadership. Now compare that to the silence and scams we've gotten here at home.
Everyone's standing in front of their house. They want to go to work and they're not allowed to do it.
And the most important thing is for people to be safe.
They're safe. They're safe. I watched hundreds of people standing in front of their lots, and they're not allowed to go in. It's all burned. It's gone. It's done. Nothing's going to happen to it. It's not going to burn anymore. There's nothing.
It's literally comical to hear Karen Bass talk about safety, building safely. I live here, right here in Los Angeles. I see what's really happening. Brand new, low-income apartment complexes, primarily for illegal aliens, go up in weeks. From dirt lot to multi-level housing with parking garages in a month or two. But here's the problem. They look like paper-mâché. Within months, people moving in, they're already crumbling. That's not safety. That's speed over substance. It's a ploy. It's a plan. And people need to start calling it out for what it is. And did you notice in that clip, Newsom wasn't there? Why? Because he didn't want the heat. He didn't want tough questions about the burned up land. He didn't want a soundbite of him squirming over why permits weren't being fast tracked so families could rebuild. And that silence was telling to those who are paying attention, because I believe that those plans for the wildfire land were already in motion. He just didn't want to get caught. So let's fast forward to today. What do we see right now? Newsom is now unveiling a $101 million plan for low-income housing in the Palisades. Convenient, isn't it? Families can't rebuild their homes, but the state can draw up an entirely new neighborhood in a couple of months. That's That's not compassion. Do you think that's compassion? That's corruption with a smile on his face. And let's be real. The Palisades isn't your typical low-income neighborhood. This isn't about helping the poor or even the middle class. This is about something else. Tax breaks, land grabs, long-term profit. They brand it as affordable housing today. But what do you think it'll become in 10 years? Luxury units, high-rent condos, a developer's dream. This is not charity. It's a chess move. And Bass and Newsom, they're playing the people like pawns. And you know what irritates me the most? It's not just that Newsom can lie so easily. It's how easily people fall for it. They wield fear like a weapon, brainwashing citizens into believing this is compassion, this is progress. But it's not. It's manipulation. It's theft dressed up as virtue. And the saddest part, too many people are still buying it. It's crazy.
You think ICE is not going to show up around voting and polling booths to chill participation? You know that. The National Guard, you know that. Everybody knows what's at stake. So we have to put a stake in the ground and do things different.
Boy, oh boy. It's crazy. So legal citizens, people here lawfully being scared of immigration enforcement. Think about that. You've got your papers. You pay your taxes. You've done everything right. And you're worried about ICE. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But that's propaganda for you. It's powerful. It can flip common sense upside down, making the obvious look suspicious and nonsense look normal. Fear is their weapon of choice. Because if you can keep people afraid, you can make them see ghosts that are not there. You can blind them into the realities that they witness every single day. And that's exactly how these politicians operate, on fear. Not just the politicians, but the media pundits as well, on fear, not truth. Now, in this clip, you'll hear about ICE showing up at the voting polls. And let me say this clearly. ICE should show up at the polls because non-citizens should not be voting, period. That's not a radical idea. That's just basic law. Let me put this into perspective. That's like someone breaking into your apartment, sitting on your couch and telling you how you should rearrange your furniture. And then the police show up and back them up. Not you. That's insanity. That's what it's like when non-citizens vote in American elections. And yet it makes perfect sense for people desperate for votes by any means necessary. That's the Democrats' playbook. Expand the voter rolls, no matter the cost, even if it means erasing the very meaning of citizenship. Now listen closely to J.B. Pritzker in this next video. He actually says Trump wants to interfere with elections by preventing non-citizens from voting. Just stop and think about that. That statement alone tells you how crazy these people are. And maybe even more insulting, how dumb they think you are. They believe you won't catch it.
This is a part of his plan to do something really nefarious, which is to interfere with elections in 2026. He wants to have troops on the ground to stop people from voting, to intimidate people from going to the voting booth. So take note. That is what this is all.
Just off topic a little bit. One of the saddest things for me personally is watching people I once thought were stand-up individuals, people I looked up to when I was younger, turn into complete sellouts. People like Maxine Waters. Back in the day, I believe she stood for something, but now she'll say anything, do anything, just to stay in power, just to stay rich, and to stay relevant. What you see from Maxine Waters today is not leadership. It's just sheer desperation. She's traded integrity for influence. She's traded her principles in for paychecks. And every time she gets on camera, it's the same performance. Loud rhetoric, empty threats, and loyalty to a party that uses her as a useful pawn. Maxine Waters, once a symbol of strong representation, reduced to spouting ridiculous talking points on national TV. Not for the people, not for the truth, but just to keep her seat warm and her name in the headlines.
It is time to call for Article 25 of the Constitution of the United States of America to determine his unfitness, to determine that something's wrong with this president. And I would suggest that we move very aggressively to talk about the danger to this country and to our democracy.
How disappointing. How disappointing. All of these people on the left use the same tired script over and over and over again. Notice what's missing? They never talk about the American citizen. They never talk about what you need. They never talk about what you desire. Not what you're literally begging for. No, they talk about themselves. They talk about their power. They talk about their plans, their obsession with stopping anyone who threatens their throne. Right now, it just so happens to be Donald Trump. And they'll wrap it all up in this banner of quote unquote democracy. But there's nothing democratic about it. You don't get to vote on anything that matters. You do not get a say. You can't even get through to them at all. Forget about a true democratic process. What? They don't even bother with primaries anymore. They handpick and select candidates. The ones that will read the script, just like Maxine Waters is, follow the plan, and sell you out for profit. Because at the end of the day, the Democratic Party is about one thing and one thing only, is money. That's the engine. That's the motivation. That's the prize. And if you pay attention, just listen closely, you'll hear it in every single speech, every interview, every so-called town hall. And don't forget the media wing, MSNBC, Roland Martin, people like that, Joy Reid, all of them. They're not reporting anything. They are protecting their access, protecting their paychecks, protecting their positions. They never once addressed the real issues of the tax-paying citizen. And when the taxpayer dares to say something different, of course, they try to demonize you. That shouldn't work on us, but they'll try. They'll try to demonize you. They'll try to smear you. They'll try to shame you. That's the game. So just pay attention. Connect the dots. It's easy to see. You'll see it for yourself. And anyway, that's it for today. I'm Wolf Cage, and this has been Wolf Cage Los Angeles. Stay unwoke. Peace.